first thing and get the laser cast. Then we'll do the bottom. Oh, hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Is the laser in my face?
Yes.
Yes, it is. So today, we're gonna finish the kitchen. We're lasered and perfect all the way over to here. We have to put this one cabinet in. Then we're gonna take this cabinet, put that in up against it, and then the upper, and then I think we're onto the floor. Whoops. Don't lean on that, folks. How's the laser look? Ooh. Okay, do we have it right now? Just off. So we need a slight shim on this side. So if we can tell that this is the stud, which it definitely is, then we go 16, 16, beep boop. That's gonna be our center. So if I throw a screw in, I'm gonna hit a stud. When you're gonna drive a screw, so in this case, I'm gonna shim both sides just because I'm nervous. But when you are gonna drive a screw in, you want a shim behind what you're driving. Okay, because you don't want this to flex in and pull in. So I'll put a shim right behind where I'm working. I don't want to push it too much because I don't want to force anything. Ooh, that's good. The shims on the side, you should just be able to give them a score, and that'll give it a weak point to where it breaks off. Okay. A little quick recap. We forgot to film it. There it is. It's done. Here you go. There. It's in. All right, here we go. Here it is. What do you think? Looks pretty good, right? Looks pretty good. We're gonna fix these squeaks the best we can with a lot of torque screws. 2.5 inch. We're gonna drive them everywhere there's a nail, and then some. At least everywhere there's a nail. Probably more like 4 or 5 in the centers, and that'll get rid of all the squeaks. You can see here the framing underneath, they missed a lot. And when you're driving a screw, you'll know if it glances off or if it drives through the framing. You want to make sure you're going into the framing, so pay attention to each screw. Make sure it is actually sucking down underneath the very top edge of the plywood. Then you know you're actually making good connection to the framing below. I've done the best I can with the floor. There are definitely no more obvious squeaks, at least on this half, but I can still hear it creaking just a little bit. This is not tongue and groove. This is regular plywood, subfloor plywood, and it's flexing between the joists. I also feel like there might be a little bit of joist movement as well. So I get these little slight, I wouldn't even call them creaks, more like a little crack or a slight like pop noise coming out of the floor. But I screwed the ever-living crap out of it. It's about as much as I can do. It's pretty solid. I'm gonna go around and get rid of any high spots, get all the ridges out with my aggressive belt sander, and then I think it's time to put the underlayment down. And that should, with a thick underlayment and thin set under the underlayment, it should stiffen the floor up enough to put tile on. I gotta tell you, this belt sander is not for finished carpentry, but with some 60 grit sandpaper, it is basically a planer. Who's a good girl? Come here. Who's a good girl? Who's a good girl? You want this? You want this? Yeah. All I'm really doing now is just sanding down the butt joints to make sure all of the elevations between the plywood is consistent. You can use any sander for this. Okay, so the ridges are all sanded down and there's no major lippage anymore. We want to have our underlayment layout ready to go and nothing landing on any open seams, because these open seams have a little bit of give. Got some give. See that there? Can you see that? Probably can't see it with me moving as well. Just trust me, they got some give. So we don't want any of the seams landing on that. That's good.
Oreos are ready for this.
All right, so we're like peanut butter.
Charlie.
You should wear knee pads. I'm gonna regret this later. You start to put your ridges in, you're gonna be like, oh! You can do it. Yep, drop right down. Cheap stuff. Yep. You'll see the way I like to put this underlayment down is I'll plop all the thin set on the floor, then I'll scrape it all flat, make sure my 1/4x1/4 trowel gets good adhesion, then I will scrape the notches in and lay the board down. Manufacturers will require that you thin set the underlayment and then drive rated screws, not regular sheetrock screws or construction screws, but rated screws for whatever bore you're using, usually every 6 inches. But again, that's manufacturer recommendation. This tape that you see that handsome devil putting down is a mesh tape that's very similar to a sheetrock mesh tape. It basically is just bonding all the sheets together, basically just like sheetrock work. The one thing I've learned the hard way during this process is to make sure all of your joints that you're scraping are nice and smooth, because it's a pain in the butt later when you're troweling for tile and you're hitting all kinds of bumps. So I just had a thought I wanted to talk about real quick. Building your own things and doing your own DIY projects it can be very satisfying, and it can also be very cost effective. But there are things that I've seen people make mistakes in that are too costly. They've saved themselves in the front and they paid for it years down the road. This could even be one of those situations that we're working on right now. You know, potentially somebody didn't do something quite right, and so it led to flooding, and now the flooding, somebody else, aka Jeremy, has to pay for it because of someone else's, poor quality installation. If you're going to work on things like structural or plumbing, or especially electrical, or even like water shedding, waterproofing, or things like that, I would encourage you to either, one, already be well advised on how to do it, either be a professional yourself or be directly adjacent to a professional, you know, maybe your father's an electrician or, you know, something like that. I would not encourage you to go try that on your own without knowing. And if you do try it on your own, I would certainly strongly recommend you pull a permit for whatever it is that you're working on so that you can at least have code enforcement come out and double check. Now, code enforcement can be used sometimes too much. You know, you might be worried they might nickel and dime you, but don't worry about those little things that they're trying to get perfect. What they're really doing is they're making sure those big items that will keep your home intact 50 years from now are good. They make sure what you installed is not dangerous and it's not going to be a poor installation that will fail. It's future proofing. So if you have those items, it's not like you don't have to worry about like the trim on your windows. That's not going to make or break anything. But if you wire something wrong, you don't have a good connection, and then over the next 5 years that connection fails, and then you have a fire in the house, well, that's much worse. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your DIY projects. Be well informed, but don't consider YouTube as well informed, okay? All right.
Ew, don't do that.